Well, COVID, of course, dominated the First Minister's speech to the SNP's online conference, but a second independence referendum did come up. Let's hear what she said.
Next year, COVID permitting, as we emerge from winter into spring, the campaign to persuade a majority of people in Scotland that our future will be more secure as an independent nation will resume in earnest. In the course of next year, I will initiate the process necessary to enable a referendum before the end of 2023. And just as importantly, our party will set out afresh the positive case for independence.
So, Shona, how will that have gone down with the SNP faithful, do you think?
Well, it was quite a strange conference speech, wasn't it? Because at the start, you felt like you were just watching a COVID briefing, because obviously that was the focus, especially with this new variant being detected. And then obviously as the speech went on, there were more hints about independence and more suggestions of, looking forward to the future, the post-COVID future. So I do think the people who insist on trying to find fault with Nicola Sturgeon, who insist on suggesting that she's just pretending she wants independence at this point, I guess it won't have changed their minds. But I feel that her emphasis on making a positive case, her focus on security there, rather than, democracy, which is of course a big part of it, but focusing on how this will impact on people's lives, and also focusing on the independence is normal line, where reminding people that this isn't a strange idea and some kind of fringe idea, that many other countries have obviously achieved their independence and not looked back. So I think that she balanced things well, and obviously, as I say, it started very, very COVID heavy, but by the end it was looking forward to sort of loading the starting gun, if not firing it yet, in anticipation of spring, which obviously people are hoping will be in a very different place by then.
Andy, the SNP Westminster leader, Ian Blackford, he said there would need to be an ideal set of circumstances. Will there ever be an ideal set of circumstances?
Well, look, I mean, it's always a slightly difficult time to discuss it because it's SNP conference, and you can't have an SNP conference without talking about independence, as Kate Forbes said on the radio the other morning. It's inevitable. It's going to dominate. I don't think Nicola Sturgeon's in any bother internally at all. Anybody who complains about her strategy can be shown the door marked Alba and wished her good luck. And that is really the end of that. I think her trouble, to be honest, comes from the UK government. I just don't see any pressure at the moment on the UK government to actually grant a referendum. Now, I think there's a mandate. I think that's pretty clear. I think anybody independent from a different country would come in and look at the result in May and look at the manifesto in May and say there's a mandate for a referendum. But the UK government's got to grant one. And I just don't think they are feeling under any pressure whatsoever to grant one. And I don't think they will feel under any pressure to grant one until after the 2023, presuming that's when it is, general election, in which the SNP will have to return something pretty gigantic to persuade the UK government differently. So that the only trouble Nicola Sturgeon, I think, is in is that she's creating dates, which she has to do for her own audience, but she's creating dates that are completely out with her control. And I think that ultimately that is where the difficulty lies. It's difficult to see where she, if you sit her down and say, talk me through the process of getting a referendum, it's very difficult to have that conversation without the UK government being on side.
Colin, what do you make of the SNP's position on a second independence referendum?
I think Andy's argument there is broadly right in that they'll get this through the Scottish Parliament because between the SNP and the Greens they have a majority there. Now the key thing is what happens after that. When that legislation is passed through the Scottish Parliament and Westminster, the UK government, has, I think it's about 45 days or so, to then refer that to the Supreme Court. Let's see what happens then, because I think that's what the advisors to the SNP are kind of expecting at the moment, is that that's the way it will work. It'll go through the Scottish Parliament and then the UK government will refer it to the Supreme Court, and then we'll see what the Supreme Court does. Now, I think most expectations would be that the Supreme Court says, well, Westminster is sovereign, therefore they get to decide. They can either give the powers to the Scottish Parliament or not. But it'd be interesting to see if that was the outcome, how the law lords would actually determine that, what they would actually say about that. But also then, what is the international reaction to that? If, as Andy says, the international community recognises that the Scottish Government has that mandate, but it's being denied by the UK Government, and if it's brought to that kind of head, where is that going to leave us? Now, the timescale is something completely different. I think 2023, that prospect for a general election round about then, that could be some kind of catalyst. If not, then we could be looking at either that or the next Scottish Parliament election, even in just under 5 years' time, becoming a de facto referendum on a referendum, much more so than we've had since over the last couple of elections.
Shona, will this referendum ever happen?
It does feel like Groundhog Day with all this talk of there'll be a mandate. You know, there's so many mandates now. It just seems completely ridiculous. I can't say for sure. I mean, as I say, I think there is the commitment there to try to hold it. But as Andy says, and as Colin says, you know, there are these obstacles in the way, and it will remain to be seen, you know, how that goes down if Scotland's, you know, expressed will through multiple elections is denied by the UK government. But we don't even know who'll be leading the UK government by the time this happens. You know, it could well be not Boris Johnson.
And why is that so crucial, Andy? You spoke about the potential of a general election 2023. Why is that so crucial, briefly?
Well, simply because although there's no legal or constitutional argument to this at all, the political reality is that the SNP's failure to win a majority in the elections in May meant everything, because it meant that the UK government could say, this is not 2011, this is different, so we don't have to do the same thing. It's not important constitutionally in a proportionally representative parliament, but politically, the failure to win that 65th seat meant everything when it came to Indy Ref 2.